welcome back. With this kind of awareness gong, we want to bring our attention now to the next topic of plastic management, a very, very important topic, of course. And we have kind of a superstar in terms of plastic management, consulting and support here. Joe Hendricks, the founder of Travel Without Plastic, will give a keynote on the topic. I will hand over to you and look forward to hearing from you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. That's a big pedestal that I need to not fall off then during the presentation. So, okay, am I doing that the right way? We practiced and it worked. That's right, isn't it? Perfect. Thank you very much. So what I'm going to talk about today, quite obviously, is plastic management in tour operations. And I've actually worked on waste reduction and plastic reduction in hotels predominantly since 2011. That's when I was working at the Thomas Cook Group. And I left the Thomas Cook Group in 2014, and I didn't actually start Travel Without Plastic, which is the name of our company, until this defining moment in the Cayman Islands, in a hotel that I was staying in, and they served breakfast like this every single day. And this was the moment when I just thought, I can't take this anymore, because there's no reason to do it like this. And in this hotel alone, I worked out that just at breakfast, and just with these items that you can see, they'd be getting through over 500,000 pieces of single-use plastic every year. Just at breakfast, just with a knife, fork, spoon, bowl, plate, cup, nothing else. As I started to work with more bigger resorts and hotels, as you can imagine, that figure could easily get to 2 to 3 million pieces of plastic every year in one hotel. And then you think about how many hotels there are in the world. And then over the years that I've been in travel, which is a long time, since 1997, which feels like centuries ago, I've kind of seen this increasingly damaging impacts of single-use plastic pollution in destinations, and the Earth just simply wasn't designed to digest plastic. Our current waste infrastructure certainly isn't designed to cope with the type of consumption and the habits that we've now got that kind of favour convenience and single use. And we all know that plastic pollution is deadly to marine life. What we don't see quite so often is the impact of plastic on land, where it's also deadly to other animals as well. We are starting to hear a little bit more about the impacts of plastic on human health, and that the 210 species of fish that are eaten by humans have been found to have ingested plastic in some way, so it's in our food chain. We grow our food under the covers of plastic, and these can break down into microplastics that make its way into the soils and our food chains as well. There was a study in Italy that microplastics have been found in breast milk. I mean, that's way too early to tell how that's going to impact on children as they grow up, but safe to say, I don't think it's going to be a very good impact. And it impacts people in other ways too. So most of the plastic that we're consuming, you probably all know this, is not actually being recycled. There's a wide variety of reasons for that. When it does get maybe sent for recycling, it can often end up in countries that have got very poor infrastructures, and they're just not able to do it. And so it ends up being done in informal recycling sectors, in working conditions that are quite dangerous and damaging to people's health. And then so many of our plastic products today are mixed with chemicals and other different materials, so it makes them almost impossible to separate or to recycle. So they're often just incinerated or landfilled. It's the easiest way to deal with it. But that's creating significant air pollution, particularly in more vulnerable and less developed areas. There was also a study done in the US, actually, and it showed how litter and street pollution can really negatively impact just generally on people's happiness if they work in or live in areas with a lot of litter. And sometimes we can sit in a room like this and it's all a bit far away, isn't it? If we've got really good waste infrastructure here and we don't see litter on the streets, it's very clean. When I've been walking around Cascais, we feel quite far removed from those problems, but it is impacting all of us in some way. Now, I'm assuming that you've all got a credit card or something in your bag, in your pocket, a hotel card. If you've got one, just take it out for a minute, have a look at it. I've got time, I've timed myself, I should have 50 seconds spare. So I've got time to let you do this. Have a look at it for a bit, and there was a study in Australia a couple of years back, and they said that human beings could be ingesting this amount of plastic. But would you say that we do that every week or every month? If you think we ingest this amount of plastic in a week, I want you to stand up. And if you think it's in a month, you can stay sitting down. I only had 50 seconds spare, so if you've made your choices. Okay. A week. Isn't that astonishing? And you think, wow, imagine we just put that on your plate on a Monday morning and said, there you go, have that for breakfast, get your plastic ingestion done for the week already. So it's the equivalent of one of these a week, but it's coming from the air we breathe, it's coming from food we eat, it's coming from water we drink, and I think it's a bit too early to tell what it means for us, even though people tell us it's safe. It's also really reputational impact for tourism businesses. So single-use plastic is often the one thing that is preventing a business from getting its 5-star review on TripAdvisor. And people will actually say that, didn't give it 5 stars because of the plastic. Really interesting. Travellers are more aware, we've heard that from lots of you today, about sustainability, and they're taking a lot of steps in their own lives to reduce plastic at home. So when they travel and they see lots of it, it's really frustrating for them, and they're very happy to post negatively about this on social media. So Travel Without Plastic was founded in 2017 because I really wanted to try and make a difference about this, and I knew the industry could do better, and there were enough people, if we got to the mindset that our colleague was mentioning before, that we could actually change this. And this is what we've been doing over the last 6 years, as you can tell from some of the pictures on the screen there. So since 2017, we've worked with all kinds of tourism businesses and supporting organisations. And over the last 6 months, we've been working really closely with some of the tour operators in the Travel Life family to help them along their own individual journeys to reduce waste on their tours. 5 operators that had joined the plastic management programme really stood out as the ones that were very proactive. I'm probably not going to say the first one right, which is Weltweit Wandern. I've done a good job of the pronunciation. Odysseia, SMP, Dolphin Vacanti, not sure if I've said that right, and Journey Latin America. So these ones were really, really proactive. And throughout the project, what we did is we followed this kind of 4 circles of influence rules. So we start with the tour operator's own premises, if they had them, because we obviously wanted to lead by example before we ask others to make changes. And so this is something that SMP did. So some things they did in the office were switching from plastic hand soap dispensers to this company called Soap 2.0. And what you do there is you simply drop that little sachet that you can see on the screen into a glass dispensing bottle, add some water, shake it. The outside is not plastic, it dissolves, put the pump back on, hand soap, no more plastic bottles, totally refillable, massively reduced carbon footprint because all you're buying are the small sachets and you're not paying or having transport of water and larger bottles shipped. They removed all the plastic cups. They made sure that all of their colleagues had cups in the offices. There's 60 people in the offices. They even took the plastic cups out of the vending machine. And so you've got to make sure you take your own cup with you and put that under to ask for the drink. So that was a great thing as well. And they've gone as far as purchasing refillable dishwashing liquid. So everything that they can do is reducing the volumes of plastic in their office. And then they also hold regular green chats, they call them, with the 20 most important suppliers in their network, but they intend to extend that to all 150 suppliers this year so that they can reach more people with this message. They're piloting plastic-free packed lunches in Madeira this year, which has already started, and if that's successful, they'll take 3,000 plastic bottles out of packed lunches. And if their hotel partners start to offer plastic or water that's not in plastic bottles, they'll reduce another 4,500 bottles there as well. And they've done a lot of work on reaching the clients with that message. So around 25,000 customers every year are being informed that they can travel with their own reusable bottles, their own reusable containers, their own reusable bags, and they very, very, very much push that there is safe and available tap water in destinations, so people feel confident about that. Something else we did during the project was create a series of short checklists for tour guides that are actually in the destination, so we could find out where is plastic being used when we're on the tour, whether it's at accommodation providers, on boat trip excursions, on desert treks, restaurants, cafes, hotels. So there was also a short section to get some feedback from the guides and to get feedback from the customers. And Weltweitwandern did a fabulous job with this in two specific destinations, Morocco and Jordan. So the checklist helped them to identify exactly where single-use plastic was being used. But my favourite part of the questionnaire by far was that customer insight that we've also touched on a little bit this morning. And we found that everybody doing the tour would be willing to do a 2-minute litter pick as part of the itinerary. And it's really interesting because some operators had thought about that before and they were too scared to offer it because they thought people would think, don't be ridiculous, that's a terrible idea, or they wouldn't want to do it. Every single person that was asked would they want to do that as part of their itinerary said yes, which was fabulous. I think about halfway through the tour was a really good point to ask that, because at this point people are quite upset to see the plastic pollution in the destination. And they want to do something about it. I'll give you just a few seconds to read some of the comments on the screen there. So people feel really sad. Look how often the word sad comes up. You know, when we ask them, how do you feel about seeing plastic on your trip? But based on this, we were then able to ask, what do you think we could do about it, and how likely would you be to be able to support the tour operator with this? And the ideas came from the customers themselves, such as keeping hold of their waste and taking it back to the accommodation with them in some way so that it could be disposed of properly. So it gives us as tour operators a really good opportunity to think about how can we facilitate this for our customers and guests. Now, at Orosei, Anna and Lubo, the team of Orosei in Bulgaria, they've got a very, very comprehensive plastic reduction policy that carries through from their office and right out into the supply chain. They do everything in their influence that they can to keep single-use plastic away from the guest experience, whether that's a lot of awareness raising locally, organising cleanups in the destinations, proactively campaigning at political levels, and creating informative leaflets to share with other organisations and in the public sector. There is very little awareness of or understanding of sustainability in their destination, and I think it concurs a little bit with what Irene was saying this morning about this constant struggle of trying to get the message across and those constant challenges and obstacles, but it hasn't stopped them. And they told me a story just a couple of weeks ago, and I was chatting to them about a hotel they worked with that had sadly had a fire on site, and they had to relocate the lunch into a different area of the accommodation. And they did that, making a massive effort not to use single-use plastic. And they did it because they'd received all of this communication and emails from Anna and Lubo. They'd never actually replied to Anna and Lubo, to any of those emails. But it shows you they were getting through, the message was getting through. So sometimes when we think about, why are we doing it? Nobody's responding. It's going in, and people are starting to make that difference. Dolphin Vacantes, they joined the project a little bit later on in the year, but they still undertook some questionnaires with their hotels in Italy and Corfu. And this was interesting because we identified in those destinations that there were actually more single-use plastic items being used. So it gave us a bit of the insight into the types of hotels and the type of demographic where they might use more plastic. But the great thing, as Laura showed this morning, about the SUSTOUR toolkit is there's lots of guidance and tools in there that will be able to help Dolphin Vacante share those with their hotel partners so that they can then go on to take those steps. So the toolkit that was shown this morning, the plastic toolkit put together by Futouris, is really, really useful. They'd also shared a sustainability survey with their suppliers that they were a little bit nervous about doing, but they found that their accommodation suppliers were really happy to come back and talk about that. So they've got other things that they can promote as well in their publications. And Journey Latin America also joined the project a little bit later on in the year, and they've made significant commitments and action plans to find out again where is single-use plastic used on their trips, and subsequently to help their supply chain with ideas about how they can reduce and eliminate it. So at the point when I had to have this presentation prepared, I hadn't really been able to collect in all of the good practice photos. There's lots of them out there, but I've put a couple together. Ones that I wanted to share with you today, specifically around water. That was a really big problem, trying to get water provided, drinking water without plastic bottles, specifically when you're on itinerary trips and you're moving from different places day to day. So we saw good examples of how to do it in the accommodation, refillable and returnable bottles being carried on vehicles, including camels at times when they were in the desert, planning in stops along the way at cafes that will allow people to refill their bottles, and also looking at things like reusable cup carriers, stuff that make it easy for you to take things on the go. Eating on the go was a massive challenge for lots, and a lot of guests actually listened to the tour operator message that said bring your own food containers, and they did, and then they went down to collect their picnic in the morning only to find the accommodation had wrapped it in loads of single-use plastic, which was really quite frustrating when they'd made the effort. So again, some ideas came from the guests themselves that said, why don't we just, from the morning breakfast buffet, use our own containers, put what we want from the breakfast buffet into our containers and take it with us. Brilliant. So the guests were actually coming up with the ideas themselves, which was fabulous because they're there at the time, living it, breathing it, and thinking through the solutions. So that was really fabulous. We also found guides that were buying in as bulk packages as they can and then decanting for people while they were out on the road. So that was reducing volumes of plastic, which was great. And they're not specifically from this project, but these are some of the pictures that I like to share so that the tour operator partners can share them with hotel partners. So things like reusable and washable flip-flops instead of single-use plastic slippers, those sorts of things. Laundry bags that are actually made from plastic bags that have been woven together and that support artisan projects in destinations. Really nice little ceramic refillable pots for things like shower gels and shampoos, that sort of thing. And with Futouris, with Tatiana, who was speaking earlier on, we had a project over the last couple of years where we've actually had reusable bin liners in hotels that are just really easy to wash and completely eliminate plastic bin bags. So there's loads and loads of ideas out there. So what's great now for us is that the operators can really continue what they started. We've seen that it's been a great way to kick this off, to get more ideas, to be able to share and learn from each other. That's probably all I've got time to share this morning. It's really important for me that we can move on and let you hear from some of the panelists and some of the fantastic work that they have been doing as well throughout their supply chains to be able to reduce plastic. So thank you from me, and I will pass on I'll pass the floor to Balázs now. I watched an interview with Balázs, and it was absolutely fantastic, the level of detail and what's been happening in your company and how you've chosen to go so far, so deep and make so many changes. I really can't wait for everybody else.
Yeah. it's quite a ride. Yeah.
But to hear how you did.
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Jo.
Balázs.
Okay. Hello, my name is Balázs Németh, and I'm from the one and only Travel Life partner tour operator of Hungary, OTP Travel, to share how we can make a change and reduce plastic waste. Thank you, SUSTOUR, ECTA, and the Hungarian Association of Tour Operators for letting us join the project. We believe in the power of commitment and the actions we take. There's no secret. The instructions are so simple to follow. Open your mind, learn a lot, look around your very business and do what you can do. That's it, in a nutshell. It was in the late 1950s when Mr. Edward Teller, a Hungarian-born physicist, you might spot his character in the recent Hollywood blockbuster Oppenheimer. So Mr. Teller highlighted the connections of oil industry, carbon dioxide, and greenhouse effects. And even in our days, Ms. Diana Ürge-Warschatz, another Hungarian physicist, by the way, IPCC vice chair, is sometimes talking about the same complex issue in a simple, relatable way that resonates among contemporary artists and the wider society. Because plastic is a major problem. Even from its production, synthetics are made of crude oil. To the landfills and waters, most of it is wasted. Plastic is easy to access, unbelievably cheap because of the scale of production. So it is everywhere, everywhere. Don't panic, but even this hole is not a safe space anymore. Solid plastic waste and microplastics are a huge threat on European and even Hungarian waters. And if you have a nature treasure, like we have the largest swimmable thermal lake, which is warm even in winter time, everyone's welcome. It's in Hévíz, Hungary. You are responsible to keep it clean and pristine. So is it too late to do anything? Is it out of our control? We say a clear no. Read IPCC report as a survival manual and follow the practical suggestions in it. Okay, all right, we decided to make a change, but how to start it? First of all, we started with ourselves. Started changing our very office practice and decided not to use plastic wallets and punch pockets anymore needed for archiving purposes. Number two, we reuse plastic containers and operate a selective waste management to promote recycling plastic waste. Number three, we spread the message of our commitment by gifting durable refillable water bottles to our clients, business partners, colleagues, and they love to use and reuse and reuse and reuse it. And happy to talk about it, to share the message, happy to contribute, to be the part of the solution instead of the pollution. Number four, visiting local markets and shopping local is usually part of our package offers, and along with our educated tour guides, we recommend using one foldable, light textile bag instead of many single-use plastic ones in line with EU directives. Number five, we usually propose dining-in options, as you have already mentioned, Joe, instead of takeaway food to reduce food packaging waste. And of course, we are happy to work with like-minded service providers, sharing our values of reducing plastic waste, like this nice accommodation in the Lake Balaton region. Number seven, but who counts it? Deeply involved in the MICE business, we usually invite our guests to have a dinner or enjoy a glass of fine wine. And during these events, we do share our values, even in indirect ways. Tiny little details are telling so much about our respect paid to our environment and partners. Short supply distances means less packaging volume, let's say. Anyway, changing a culture, like moving from meat to plant-based options, is quite tough, I admit. It's not easy. But single-use cutlery was just a bad trend, not an essential part of a culture. And having, again, washable, traditional cutlery is way more sustainable and preferred and celebrated by our clients. Balancing tradition and innovation, wine is always a good example. We do appreciate the local knowledge, the local economy, the values of the local land and culture that local wine represents. When in Portugal, drink Portuguese wines. When in Hungary, drink Hungarian ones. Let's talk about the outcomes. Well, it would be ridiculous to talk about great results since we have just started our long, long journey. These are baby steps we made. But what we do build is a solid basis of long-term success of sustainable approach, from organizing group tours to corporate events. Both top-down and bottom-up initiatives are going on side by side in OTP Travel. Our management is highly committed in going sustainable, and there are enthusiastic ambassadors among the staff to raise awareness and inclusion towards a plastic-free everyday business. We put sustainability in the heads as part of our principles, since in our perception this is part of the new normal, while keeping the focus on the client's expectations and requirements and experiences to keep the business sustainable. Okay. We are here in such a nice community, and we in Hungary like building bridges, even physically, literally, and figuratively also. And yeah, Joe, could you please help me? How can I help you? That's a bridge. Look at this. And the discussion is started. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And yeah, the landmark of Budapest is the oldest bridge, the chain bridge connecting Buda and Pest above the majestic River Danube. And we all know that we are in the same boat, so we can fix the problems together. Look at these cranes, even these birds from the protected Ramsari wetlands of the Hungarian Puszta have realized the power of cooperation, so let's learn from them. This is our best interest, to keep the diverse natural and cultural values, the essence, the very essence of our product, survive. I'm so grateful being among you. And if you are searching for a partner, a travel life partner in Hungary, OTP Travel is open to cooperate with you. So let's talk about your views and actions. That's a call for action. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you, Balázs. I think it really shows, doesn't it, when it's ingrained as part of your DNA that you want to be able to do something and you really want to make a change, and you can feel that not just enthusiasm, but the realness of what you want to be able to achieve. And like you say, you're on the beginning of the journey, and there's a long road ahead, but a good way to get started. Thank you very much. Excellent. I'd like to bring up next Kim from Adriatic. And Adriatic is a DMC in Croatia, actually, specialising in crafting group and bespoke excursions, land tours, cruises, and MICE programs as well. And today, Kim is going to share a really interesting presentation about their journey towards reducing plastic. Thank you.
Just down, yeah. Hello, everybody, or should I say hola, in honor of our host today. My name is Kim Butigan, and I'm here today to tell you about our story of how we made our tours more sustainable through our plastic replacement scheme. As a relatively young and relatively small but mighty DMC, we take sustainability very seriously. We joined the Travel Life system in 2018 and achieved certified status in 2019. As part of our commitment to continually improving our business operations, We sought to identify the critical issues affecting the sustainability of our services, and improving single-use plastic management was very quickly identified as a top priority for us. Why does the management of single-use plastic matter in our business operations? Well, I'm not going to labour the point which was so eloquently covered by Jo in her keynote speech, but for us, besides the obvious, there's an additional factor, and that's because we're headquartered in Dubrovnik, Croatia, which I'm sure that many of you here are familiar with. Dubrovnik's been lauded through the centuries as one of the most beautiful places on earth. The writer George Bernard Shaw referred to it as the Pearl of the Adriatic. And if you've ever had the chance to approach it on its coastal highway and see its magnificent walls, or walk its marble-like streets at dusk, you'll know why. Alas, modern-day writers have produced pieces and articles that have been less enthusiastic about the UNESCO protected city. And that's the reason why it's part of a bigger picture that makes this replacement plastic scheme so important. While it's incredibly flattering that so many tourists choose to visit Dubrovnik and Croatia, it brings with it many problems. And as a responsible DMC, it's important that we recognise this and take positive action to reduce the negative impact on the communities and the destination that we operate in, which is why we set about this. To help give you some perspective, let's look at the statistics. Croatia has a relatively small population of 4 million people, though we are very good at sports on a world stage. In 2022, nearly 19 million people visited us on a holiday. And if we take it to a smaller scale, the city of Dubrovnik, with a very humble population of 41,000, welcomed over 1 million tourists in 2022. I did the maths, and it's staggering. It equates to about 25 times more people visiting Dubrovnik than live in the city year-round. So what role does our plastic management scheme play in that picture? Quite simply, it's a small but significant step that has meaningful impact. In our case, as with buses, challenges come in threes, as the saying goes. Firstly, extremely high temperatures in spring and summer, in July and August, regularly reaching or approaching 40 degrees, make it very difficult to keep drinks, water cool when you're on the go. Secondly, travellers, operation staff and tour guides are on the go, and they don't have access to refrigerators on our transport vehicles that we use as our tours, as we use on our tours. Operation staff also need to be able to carry documents and signage between our offices and ports when they're handling ground operations. And thirdly, passengers on our small cruise ship, Adriatic Blue, need to have access to drinking water, and the ship doesn't have a mains water supply. Luckily, though, solutions also come in threes. And our first one was the procurement of insulated drink bottles that we then distributed amongst our tour guides and tour leaders to reduce the use of single-use plastic on our excursions. Water is kept cool for up to 8 hours, which coincidentally is also the maximum length of any excursion that we have. And the bottles are lightweight, making them easy to transport. We're also very lucky that in Croatia, tap water is drinkable across the country, which makes it really easy to stop and refill at any point along a tour, just as our tour guide Frederick is doing there in the old town. Secondly, on board our small cruise ship Adriatic Blue, we installed a water cooler tank. This means that our passengers are able to top up their glasses with water throughout the course of the day, obviously at a cool temperature. And when they're about to head out on a shore excursion, they can fill up their reusable bottles so they don't have to purchase an SUP bottle while they're out and about. The same applies for the crew on board. And our final switch up was procuring cotton reusable bags, which would replace the plastic carrier bags our staff were regularly using on lunch breaks when they'd pop to the shops to buy something to eat for their lunch or get things for the home. and also when they're out on the ground going from the office to the port. The bags are the perfect size for the A4 size documents that they use and the small signage that they need. They're foldable and fit into a handbag, making them practical, and crucially, they're washable. So let's talk results. While it's difficult to measure outcomes precisely, as single-use plastic was not measured across the board prior to our scheme being launched across all aspects of our business, what we are able to do is look at the number of bottles that we distributed amongst tour leaders and tour guides, identify how many tours they worked on for us in a year, and when we do that and times those two figures together, we can see that we potentially reduced the use of SUP bottles by 1,600 among tour guides and tour leaders in the course of a year. We estimate a roughly 65% reduction in the use of plastic carrier bags amongst our staff, thanks to our cotton reusable bags. And finally, on board Adriatic Blue, we can look at the figures from previous seasons where we issued 72 single-use plastic water bottles a day to the passengers only. That's not including crew consumption. And on a weekly basis, that means that we have now removed over 500 single-use plastic water bottles from the waste management cycle in Croatia. I hope you'll agree that these are small but significant steps that have truly had a meaningful impact on our destination. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. I think it's really important, isn't it, to do that leading by example piece and really starting with the staff. And what I really like about that presentation is that it's going to sound really silly, but the insulated reusable bottles, because so many companies I see give reusable bottles, but they're just single wall. And when you're out all day in the heat, that you could make a cup of tea with them by the end of it. You can't drink the water in it. So, really thinking it through around the proper service, and it does the job that it's designed for. I think that's a really good example. So thank you. Next up, I would like to ask Alessia to join us from Giordano Like Tour, which is in Sicily. They've got a fabulous presentation as well around how they are helping their customers to reduce single-use plastic, strongly believing that travel should enrich the traveller and the destinations that they visit, and we'll learn how they're doing that through minimising waste. Thank you, Alessia.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening to me. I'm very glad to be here. And of course, it's a pleasure because I think that the sustainability is very important, mainly in tourism, because we are going to be one of the biggest industry in the world. So we are going to be we need to have more interest on sustainability. So we had few experiences thanks to this project. And with this presentation, I'm going to tell you something more about it. First of all, I would like to tell you that the company for what I work, and I'm here on behalf of Németh, Giordano Like Tour is a family-run company. My family controls it, and we appreciate a lot this connection to sustainability. We were born as a transport company, so at the beginning when we started to speak about sustainability was very hard for us, but let's start. Well, I've already told you about our company. Here you can see some images from Sicily, of course. I really love our land, and I would like to make it a more sustainable region, Italian region. Well, the first thing to see is this. We made small actions, but the main question was what role can sustainable development play within our travel agency? As I said, we were born as a transport company. So for us, we thought at the beginning, how could be the main goal? Well, we decided to think about a part of the travel agency. So we would like to buy, of course, new transport services, new transport buses, ecological ones, but this is too expensive at the moment. So we decided to change our way of living in the office, our way of selling excursions, and at the same time, we can say that we would like to improve the thought to sustainability. So we would like to inform our customers for this. For this reason, we try to create, we are committed to create some policy, sustainable policy, using two important keys essays. The first one is the key principles of our environmental policy, and the second one, environmentally friendly purchasing policies. So we are trying to buy less products which use plastic packaging. And of course, we are also changed some other things. For example, first of all, we started to collect waste in a different way. We are separating everything, and thanks to this, we started also to reuse papers. I mean, after we use them, we use them for notes, for example. So we started to change this way of living our office. Later, for example, we are trying to use less email, because we think that, for example, servers can have an important impact in the environment. So using less emails, it's better for the environment, so reducing pollution in this way, because we can use, for example, other methods for contacting with clients, with customers. For example, we can use WhatsApp or social in general. And then we are going to put inside our office a fountain for water. And for this reason, we have decided also to buy some bottles, but not plastic ones, in order to reuse them, not only for our employees, but also for our customers. We think that raising awareness relating to the environment is really something more important for us. And we are trying to monitoring all these things. For example, we think that we can, where the amount of plastic in our office is very hard, but we are trying to put some units, standard units, in order to reduce the plastic use in our company. Later, I would like to tell you something about how we changed the way to do our excursions. We do many, we can say, daily excursions with the cruise ships, shore excursions. So usually I'm also a tourist guide, so I can keep in touch with customers, and always I try to tell them about the environment. I try to explain to them the importance of not using plastic bottles. Most of them, in fact, accept these suggestions, mainly when I tell them that during our tour they can use some public fountains that are available, for example, in Taormina, which is one of the most beautiful towns in Sicily, with many tourists, and there they can fill their bottles. good bottles. And after that, we tried to suggest excursion using public transport. I know that it's, in Sicily, it's very difficult going on by public transport. But anyway, in Messina, for example, which is the city where we work, we have the tram line, electric one, and it's, I think, one of the best solutions to go around the city. So we suggest also this. And at the end, on the right, you can see this wonderful girl. She was an intern in my company. And she was very good because she helped me to do this project, to prepare and organize all things about the project. And at the end, she told me that she was very happy for this because she learned more about sustainability. Before, she didn't know anything about it. She is from French Polynesia and was very glad to participate in this project. So this is my final slide. So thank you for your attention. Here on the left, you can see me with her and some other employers together with one of our buses and some other groups we organized. Thank you so much for the attention.
Thank you, Alessia.
You're welcome.
I think it's really interesting that so far everybody's said about the small steps that you're taking, and so far there's been so much focus on plastic bottles, but there's a phrase, and you've probably seen it so many times on social media, where it says it's only one straw. Have you seen that? It says it's only one straw, said 8 billion people. And you think that's one of the reasons why the small steps count. And if you thought it's only one bottle, said 8 billion people, or said 72 times on your boat, for example. It sounds like small actions, and I keep hearing that word, but it's the small actions that if all of us did them, would really make a difference. So thank you, Alessia, for your presentation. Now to hand over to Niels, who's going to tell us a little bit more about how they are reducing single-use plastic on tours in mountain environments, which I'm sure brings some quite considerable challenges. So we're looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you, Niels.
Thanks. Small steps, a big impact. So this is me laughing actually with a plastic bottle. So I think sustainability management can be fun as well, not only stressful. Please reach out on LinkedIn to follow up on the conversations we have today. And I'm gonna video present you through the next 7-8 minutes, so you can just sit back, relax, absorb. I see a little bit of relief. And let's start with who we are in just 33 seconds.
I can find my way through the trees. So don't wait for me to get home. I don't know, I'm out on my own. I can't find my way back home.
And what we love to do, because of timing, you have to go to internet for that, 360explore/we love. So our challenge in the mountains we explore, plastic is everywhere. We see it between the alpine vegetation. We see it in the plastic that's being used by our suppliers. And the challenge is, how can you have a visible impact on this and at the same time actually tackle the problem at its core? So how can you reduce the use of plastic, the littering of plastic, the consumption of plastic, but also the production of plastic? Small effort, big impact. You can change your packing list. So we added some tips and tricks and some how-tos. You can change your packing list. For example, we reintroduced the soap bars, ecological soap bars, and just pieces of soap to bring it with you in a backpack in the mountains. Or start your own initiative. We started hashtag -1plastic. And it was almost immediately be picked up by the Dutch Mountaineering Association, which is quite a big association, hence amplifying the effect and the impact of the campaign that started relatively small, very small, specialized agency as well. This is a movie about hashtag -1plastic. This should be a movie about hashtag -1plastic. There it is.
Zo, de indrukwekkend stukje, hè? Maar laten we het alsjeblieft niet zo eindigen. Maar dat plastic super schadelijk is, dat is iedereen wel duidelijk. En zelfs als het een beetje afbreekt, hè, al die microplastics in de buik van dieren, in de nieren, voor de mens. We willen het daar gewoon niet hebben. En neem een boterhamzakje. Het heeft dan meer dan 10 jaar nodig om hier in de natuur af te kunnen breken. Super, super schadelijk. Maar wat te denken van een plastic fles? Meer dan 450 jaar. Het is eigenlijk gewoon te goed, die plastic. Dus het moet hier weg. En we moeten het meenemen. En waarom is het slecht voor ons? Wat kun je doen? Hoe kun je impact hebben? Zorg gewoon dat je altijd als je in de bergen bent en als je in de wildernis bent, neem wat mee terug. En hoeveel moet ik dan meenemen om impact te hebben? Maakt eigenlijk niet uit. Zelfs met 1 ding maak jij zelf al een verschil. En als je wat meeneemt, het voelt nog goed ook, vergeet dan niet om het even te taggen met hashtag -1plastic. Maak er een foto van en kijk eens naar de volgende mensen hoe ontzettend goed dat voelt.
So another good thing to do is to involve your suppliers. For example, we use a lot of expedition meals, and often all the ingredients are packed separately in plastic bags. We switched to another supplier, and they were able, with maybe a little bit of concession on taste and texture, to pack all ingredients in just 1 bag, and still it tastes amazing on top of a mountain. And we make videos in the field, instructional videos. We have our own lunch wraps, the beeswax wraps, maybe you know them. And we have our own garbage bags. And we make reels and videos in the field and share them with our participants.
Nou, dit is de collectie van 1 dag wandelen door de bergen. Ja, het is, eigenlijk word je er wel een beetje verdrietig van. Veel plastic, veel blik, boterhamzakjes. Het duurt 10 tot 20 jaar voordat het afgebroken is in de natuur.
This one misses
Blik.
the subtitles.
Ongeveer 200 jaar, grote plastic flessen hier. Het duurt zo'n 450 jaar voordat het afgebroken is. Weet je, dit is gewoon eigenlijk echt een heel erg groot probleem. En hoe mooi is het om af en toe een statement te maken en dit ook mee terug te nemen.
I'm telling
Als
a
je
little
dat
bit
doet
about
en
how
je
long it
haalt
takes
wat uit
to
de
break
natuur
down the
weg.
plastics of
Je
the
inspireert
tin
ook andere
cans.
mensen mee. Afval wat blijft liggen trekt ook weer afval aan. Dat is ook nog een beetje extra training voor je bovenlijf. En hoe dat makkelijk mee te nemen, er zijn ook mooie oplossingen voor.
And we give some
NKBV
examples
heeft,
on
heel
how to
mooi
take the
katoenen
garbage
kastje
with
van
you when
bierkatoen.
you're in the mountains.
Kan je afval indoen als je op je
For example,
bergtocht
cotton
bent.
bags
Beter nog is het afval
or
voorkomen
dry seal
natuurlijk.
bags
Dus
from
je
outdoor
boterhammetjes
research.
in een lunchwrap in plaats van een plastic zakje. Outdoor Research heeft mooie hydroseals zakjes. Kan het afval ook niet lekken. Kan je gewoon weer dichttrekken. De naden zijn getaped.
I assume
Summit
everyone in the
heeft mooie
over here
zakken
knows a
daarvoor.
little
Dan kun je
bit
zelfs een
Dutch.
vuilniszak inrollen. Is waterdicht, luchtdicht verpakt. En zo kan je de natuur nog mooier achterlaten dan dat je hem aangetroffen hebt. Hoe mooi is dat?
And we do rewards, restorative rewards for every survey that's been filled out for us at the end of a journey. For example, they can, it's whatever they choose. For example, plastic oceans. And it's not just about the €5. We also receive a lot more feedback from our participants. And we ask them actively on tips or advice how we can improve again and again in our sustainable operations. We measure and analyze, which is very important. We have been using DragSpot. You can do this with Letterbug as well. We shared this with our participants, and it even became kind of like a contest between travelers and travel groups. How much garbage can you take with you? And we made again reels, instructional videos. I'm afraid this one misses the subtitles. Data is knowledge, and knowledge is better solutions for all the plastics. So you want to know where the plastic is actually coming from. And finally, we joined the Global Tourism Plastic Initiative. We committed ourselves to this. You do a pledge kind of like as well. We made some videos for this, funny videos actually, to pay more attention on plastic again. Before I go through this video, I hope the subtitles work on it. Let's review some of the outcomes. We have enthusiastic, proud travelers. They have a feel good when they go on a trip with us. We have less plastic in our luggage in the mountains. We're an inspiration for much bigger organizations than we are ourselves. It's not so visible, but we create a very strong bond because of this as well between partners, freelancers, our mountain guides. We're proud of what we do, and it attracts people to our organization. They want to work for us. And free publicity. We move towards a higher scale, from Global Tourism Plastic Initiative to Travel Life Certified. And yeah, we're small in size, but even with small steps, you can have big impact. And everyone can do that. Every individual can do that. It just starts with you. Just ask yourself the question, what is it that I do if I walk in the mountains, on a mountain trail, I see a piece of plastic? Or when you walk this afternoon back to your hotel, you see a piece of plastic on the street, do you nod your head? Do you think, hey, it should not be there? Or do you pick it up? And do you take it with you? And do you dump it somewhere in a garbage bin? Thanks for your attention. I hope the subtitles of the last video work. Otherwise, I will pause it.
Het is 2 uur in de nacht en ik ben wakker geworden door een nachtmerrie. Ik heb een glas warme melk gedronken en loop nu door het stille, donkere huis. Maar vannacht kan ik niet meer slapen. De enige hoop voor mijn onrustige ziel ligt bij. Zouden ze er zijn?
Wat vervelend dat je je zo voelt. Waar ben je precies bang voor?
Maar eigenlijk maak ik me vannacht het meeste zorgen over plasticvervuiling in de oceaan.
Wees niet bang voor de toekomst. Bij 360 Explore zijn we hier volop mee bezig.
Vertel.
Om te beginnen, je kunt beter voor de bergnatuur zorgen door al die afval mee terug te nemen naar het dal. De meerderheid van het afval wat op paden ligt bestaat uit drinkflessen en wikkels. Vaak hebben de berghutten en dorpjes een gebrek aan mogelijkheden om het afval te scheiden. Dit verhoogt de kans dat deze plastics voor altijd in de natuur blijven. Op de paklijst staat hiervoor dus een klein afvalzakje.
Maar is dat niet vies? Ik ben op vakantie. En ik heb geen zin om de hele week met afval in mijn rugzak te lopen.
Bedenk dat hoe minder plastic je meebrengt, hoe minder dat je ook mee terug hoeft te nemen. Daarnaast denken we ook circulair. Bijvoorbeeld bestaat er een alternatief voor deze plastic verpakking. Je kunt bijvoorbeeld in plaats van muesli-reepjes een grote herbruikbare zak met een trailmix vullen voor de hele week. In plaats van plastic waterflessen te kopen, vul je water bij in een herbruikbare fles. Neem je eigen herbruikbare zak of rep mee om je lunch in te pakken, zoals bijenwaswraps.
Dat zijn inderdaad goede ideeën. Maar soms denk ik, als een wikkeltje in het bos valt en er staat niemand bij om dit te zien, wat voor geluid maakt dat wikkeltje?
Dat wikkeltje maakt een groter geluid als je het meldt. Samen met vele anderen leveren we data aan om plastic afval in kaart te brengen. En daar kan jij ook heel makkelijk bij helpen. Download de Litterbug of Dragspots app. Meld daar het afval dat je onderweg ziet liggen. Doe mee met een grote community die, net als jij en ik, een steentje willen bijdragen. Neem een foto van het stukje afval, steek het in je rugzak en post het op jouw social media met de hashtag #OnePlastic.
Ik ga meedoen. Ik zie de rest van mijn levens voor me. Nu kan ik weer slapen.
Fantastic. I think it always helps when you bring a little bit of humour in, doesn't it? Or a lot of humour in that case. Some really, really good examples up there. So last but not least, I'm going to hand the floor over to Melina. Melina is from Orosei, I don't know if I'm going to say this right. Orosei AdvenTours. Fabulous. Based in Sardinia. Actually, they do tailor-made tours around the beautiful island of Sardinia. And again, we're going to hear more about how we can reduce waste. I'm sure plastic bottles are going to appear once again.
Thank you
Big
very
issue,
much.
lots of solutions.
Thank you, Jo. So, first of all, thank you, all the colleagues. It's been very inspiring to hear about your stories, and it gave me some more ideas. That's why we are here. So, first of all, I wanted to start with, no, sorry. Okay, there we are. So I'm going to talk about plastic management in our small company. So I've seen there are quite a lot of bigger companies. We are a very small company in Sardinia, and I'm a tour guide and hiking guide myself as Niels. What we really believe in is that if you want to see a change in the world, you have to start from your inner transformation. So that's why I've shared with you this quote here. You can read it if you want. And let's come to our why. So why specifically in Sardinia? Why did we choose to change something? So Sardinia is one of the regions of Italy which is less populated. So we have a very strong agricultural and shepherds tradition on our island, just 1.6 million inhabitants. And also our Norwegic civilization, which is our specific civilization we have on our island who lived in the Bronze and Iron Age, and they had the water cult. So water and nature is a very important element in our island. But unfortunately, many of our towns don't have any drinkable tap water, and many families buy their water in plastic bottles. Unfortunately, not 5 liter or 8 liter, unfortunately 1.5 to 2 liters, and that's a lot of plastic. Also a big problem, we like a lot having feasts and doing events, and on most of these events we can find disposable plastic, so plastic plates, cups, everything. Another thing, of course, after our touristic season, as for example in Croatia, we get lots of people in July, August, September, and that's a lot of waste, and not everyone has a conscious mind, so lots of waste on the roads, in nature, etc. Also in our office, in our own office, we have tried to make a change because we were using also water bottles. And now let's come to our, to our house. So how did we change something? SUSTOUR was a big inspiration. I also want to thank Evaneos, a company we are a local agent for, because they gave us the opportunity to join this program. And actually, this led us to have more awareness about the problem, because sometimes we're just thinking about running in our lives, and we don't really stop and say, okay, we have to make a change. We just got the Travel Life Partner Certificate, award in July, so it's very new. So our objectives are set for April 2024. So the first step is installation of a water filtering system in our office and in our excursion center, and trying to start collaborations with the companies that sell these devices, organizing events, maybe tours where we can present the advantages and the amount of plastic we can reduce just by installing a water filtering system in our homes. So this avoids a lot of plastic, just the fabrication of it, and it allows us to drink good water. And also, of course, here you can see Simone, one of our colleagues, who is enjoying some Sardinian wine, so why not also drinking some wine instead of water from plastic bottles. So, second point, and I would say one of the most important points, is the sensibilization process. So sensibilizing our collaborators to use no or less disposable plastic, because we work a lot with local shepherds where we organize meals, or tour guides, sport instructors, artisans, bars, restaurants, winemakers, brewers, accommodation, of course, and all these people might not have the same awareness. So it's really important. As we are really in touch with the local operators, so we have the power to tell them, hey, you could change something. Why don't you try to not use these aprons for your ceramic workshop, but use fabric ones or disposable toiletry, etc. So trying to make them change their minds. And of course, very important on the right side, customers. So change the habits of our customers on vacation, then trying to have the hope that they will do it back at home. Third is water bottles. There you can see myself on our tour with two very friendly customers I had this summer, 83 and 76 years old. And then we started the process to give our customers water bottles to be reused. It has started changing my mind too. I was using plastic bottles, I don't anymore. And giving our customers then, once we are on tour, here you can see, for example, on the left side, an Oragic well, which is more than 1,500 years old. So we can when we have the chance to get to a place with a water source or a possibility to have drinkable water, we do that, we refill the bottles, and we can make a change. Here, down there, you can see a family who went on tour with me for 3 days, and they actually filled 20 liters of water, and they didn't need to buy any more plastic bottles for their whole trip. So Sugologone is one of our biggest karstic water sources in Sardinia. I come to the fifth point. So, of course, we saw some pictures of refilling water, but it's not just about water, it's also about other things. So mostly when we have tours where food is involved or drinks are involved, it wasn't always the case that people were, the operators were aware of this, and maybe they served mostly, for example, the shepherds, they served their food maybe on plastic plates, and we made them change a little. We're not yet I have to say we're in the process, so we're not yet at the point where we say there's no plastic at all, but at least we made them change their minds, and you can imagine some of those people have never left their island, so it's really people that haven't, they might have had this culture before, but now with the like progress, I wouldn't call it progress, but some are very used to using plastic. So it's difficult to change their minds, but we're on our ways. There you can see on the right side a local brewery, which is one of the most sustainable agricultural companies in Sardinia. They produce all their ingredients for the beer. Almost like 80% of the ingredients. Then our sunset tours, we always use aluminum cups with our own logo also. Here the little guy eating at the shepherds, they use cutting boards from wood, so we made them change a little bit. And our wine tours, where we, of course, drink wine from glasses because it's much better. And last thing is organizing events to collect rubbish, so rubbish collection campaigns. But what I have to say here is that, yes, okay, events, but also why don't you do it every day? No? Like Niels was saying, we're starting to tell people, okay, when you find something on the beach, like here, you can see me and my brother, don't leave it there. Why don't you pick it up? It's not dirty. It has been washed by the sea, so why not pick it up? So there you can see us in action. And this is the most important slide, I would say. So changing the mind of the people. Making them aware that we are part of a whole, that if we transform this toxicity into clean and pure energy, we can make a big change. And letting the people know it's your choice, it's your future. And this, from I to we, this is a very important sensibilization process. This creates harmony, good vibes. Like Niels was saying also, people get involved. They feel like a part of a whole. Then this is a contagious attitude, of course. And this can change the habits of the people. It can really change the habits of the people even when they're back home and not just on vacation. It's something we give them on their way. And, well, let's come to the outcome. I'm almost at the end of my presentation. So I would say the most important thing is that we ourselves have more awareness. Through the process we went through with the help of SUSTOUR and Travel Life, also our partners are starting to get more aware, and they're changing little things, but little things that can become bigger things. And we have a way to measure, because that's, I guess, very important for all the companies who are here, to have precise objectives to reduce the production and use of plastic. And for me, myself, it's important to create like a regional movement, but also a worldwide movement, which is from an interior ecology to an exterior ecology. And here I have to quote one of my meditation masters, which is Daniel Lumera, who has written a wonderful book, which is called Ecologia Interiore. And it's about how our mind, our thoughts, and what can influence our actions and then can change the world. So don't be a fish that follows the current, but a fish that swims against the current. I thank you very much for your attention, and it's great to be here with you.
Fantastic, thank you so much. I'm beginning to think that your question, the colleague in the front there, about mindset and how do we get to mindset is starting to be answered from a lot of the colleagues on the plastic panel who seem to have done a lot of work on mindset change. And if I may, and start with some questions and then come to you people in the audience, I would just like to come back to you, Melina, and just in terms of getting that point across and getting that message across to, like you said, the shepherds and people who probably not that long ago, like you were saying, didn't have a culture of plastic. And there are some times when people will ask me a question and they'll say, what's the most innovative alternative you've ever seen to plastic? And rather than looking forward for innovation, I think sometimes we need to just look backwards, maybe 30 or 40 years, and that's actually where the innovation of no waste was. And I just think it's quite interesting to see how people that have come from a culture previously of no waste now find it so difficult to change from single-use plastic. What has been the response from the shepherds when you've gone in and you've tried? Is it immediate obstacle barrier, or do you feel it's quite easy to get through?
That's a good question. Actually, I was telling you about the Nuragic civilization in Sardinia. So they had their most important cult was the water cult. And they had this very strong relationship with nature and water, especially because water is life. So it's interesting to see how the ancestors of the Sardinians, I'm not Sardinian myself, but I feel Sardinian, but they had this strong relationship with nature. And you can still feel this strong relationship with nature, but I think as I was saying, progress, which in my opinion is no progress, has led people to see plastic like a normal thing. No? It's like, as I was saying, local feasts were, before they were using ceramics or wood, now they use plastic because it's easier. Some of them start using compostable cups and plates, but it's not the solution, of course, which is already an awareness. So talking about the shepherds, actually, most of them have moved to compostable plastic in some of the things. Many have really reduced it to a minimum, so they have seen the point. They have seen the point, and maybe they're just using for the first wine, because they serve different kinds of wine. So first wine at the beginning, they would use the cup, the disposable cup, but then they moved to ceramic. So yes, there's been a change. There's some which are accepting it more than others, but as I was saying, we are going through a process now, so we will work on it and try to make them more aware. There are more stubborn people, more open-minded people, everywhere. So we have to choose. But we don't really want to choose just the people who are okay with that from the beginning, because it's the easy way. We really want to insist on those who are a bit more well, it doesn't matter, it's just a little bit of plastic, and make them change their minds.
Fabulous. It's hard work, isn't it?
I know.
Very hard work. And coming back to Balázs, maybe, who we heard from in the beginning, you were very much at the starting point of your journey, as you said, but you did highlight how engaged the management team are, but this is coming from above and below. I mean, for you, how important is that, and what role do you think the management are taking in perhaps carrying people along with them on that journey?
That's super important, I would say. And without the commitment of the management, on one hand, and on the other hand, with the involvement of the staff, it won't be a success at all. So we started building up, let's say, from scratch a year ago. And right now it is an obvious topic, let's say a topic of a small talk in the canteen or somewhere else. And it is in the heads right now. It is on the agenda, let's say. And this is not something like an exotic, actual, buzz story, but that became, in the last year, a part of the normal discussion and how we do business, from product development even to the very practical collection of the plastic waste, let's say, in a separate way.
Fantastic. So really making it part of the DNA.
Yeah. And on the other
Sure,
hand,
it's business as usual.
let's talk about employment branding, let's say, to embrace Gen Z colleagues. You know, we always, in short of enthusiastic young colleagues to be involved, it is something that resonates even outside of the organization in the employment market also.
Well, I think you picked up on that, didn't you, Niels? Because you said you actually attract almost the people that you want, your ideal employees are knocking on your door to be able to come and work with you because you're able to put out there already that positive communication of what you're doing and it's real. So you're actually getting the best of the market. I think that's really important, isn't it, to help change the mindset then of the customers even and take those on that journey as well.
Yeah, I fully agree. You just said that what is the best alternative for plastic that you saw? Yeah, that's the question you get. And this is also a very easy question because it's a technical solution. But a lot of it is actually just in behavior. I think this is what was in Dominique's presentation as well. And and that starts with yourself, of course. But I think there's a lot of awareness around us in generations to come. And I mean, the message is very urgent, and you don't need to make it negative. I mean, it helps to be positive, it helps to be hopeful, but we need to act now. I mean, really, now is the moment to act, and that can be positive. And sometimes you just need to send out a tough message as well. And what I hope for is that the tourism industry doesn't need any EU regulations, but the tourism industry should do it from the heart, from themselves. We can take the initiative to change.
I think so. And when you sit alone, maybe in the office or with just a small number of colleagues, you can often think, God, are we the only people doing this? And then you come to an event like this and you see that so many others are making that effort and you're in the same boat, if you like, together. And we've got 10 minutes left on the panel, do we? 15 minutes, fabulous. I don't want to take up all the time with my questions. If there are any questions from the audience, I'd like to open that up straight away, if there's a microphone somewhere.
So I'm Sally from Undiscovered Mountains, and I wanted to talk about reusable plastic containers for lunches. I don't know who wants to answer the question. It's an open question to anyone. I recently had a conversation with an accommodation supplier who has a label EcoGite, about who provides packed lunches. And I said, do you ask your clients to bring reusable containers? And he said, no, because the problem I have with that is that they all come back and want me to wash up their containers, which I can do, but it takes extra time. And if they do it individually, it uses an enormous amount of water resources. And this was a conversation that we were having after our drought that we had last year, where water resources were the topic of conversation. And I suppose the question is, what's your opinion on that? Should we use reusable containers for our packed lunches compared to the amount of water that is used in washing them, basically? What's the right solution?
Yeah.
Anybody want to take that?
Yes.
Or anybody, because you're using reusable
we
already,
use
aren't
them.
you, on your tour?
And it's sometimes challenging because in mountain huts, I mean, the operations are quite difficult, of course. And then you have people who like a vegan lunch and normal lunch with cheese. We improve continuously as well. And I think that's the main thing to do, continuous improvement. That's what Global Tourism Plastic Initiatives asked for as well. You need to improve as a tour operator. For example, with the lunch wraps that we provide, now we're making 2 colors, one veggie and one normal. So the hut warden knows directly whether to make a normal lunch or a vegan lunch. Those kind of small steps. So we do use the lunch wraps, and they're reusable every time. You can even put them in a washing machine.
They do actually use less water as well. So with a beeswax wrap, or if you had vegan, you can get it that's not beeswax. It's like a calendula wax, which is from a plant. and they only need to be washed very quickly in cold water, rinsed in cold water, so the actual washing time is reduced, but you would need to change the type of food that went into it, so you need to think carefully about what those menus are. I sometimes would also go back, and I totally understand that you've got to use water for washing, that time is involved, and etc. The time, I would say, please try to find the time if you can, or let's plan this in, or let's do this in a way that makes the time use more effective. But the water is going to be consumed in creating single-use plastic as well. There are procedures behind that we don't see. So just because you're using water to wash up doesn't mean water is not being used elsewhere in the supply chain of creating that plastic, of then trying to wash it for recycling before it goes into recycling channels. So I think very often we see the energy or the water that we're using at the time of doing something, but we forget it's used elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think the issue for him, because he was providing the lunches, he felt that he had to provide the plastic containers, so therefore the people were bringing them back, and he ended up, with 30 lunch boxes to wash up. So then we discussed, well, what about if they brought their own, and then they wash it up individually, and that's when the whole discussion about water resources and, I mean, it was an interesting discussion. I hadn't thought about it.
Yeah, it comes up quite often when you look at the reusables, but and depending on how they wash up, whether they're washing up in a bowl and they're just using the water, there's many ways to do it so that the water consumption can stay a lot less. And depending on where that plastic might end up in the environment, if they were taking single-use plastic out, so as opposed to the impacts, then the use of water is going to hopefully keep plastic out of environments. It's an individual decision, I would say. There's not really a kind of best practice that's just generalized. You've got to take into consideration where are our issues, particularly around things like water and scarcity, and then making the best decision in the situation that we're in.
Yeah,
Do you want to pick up on that?
Yeah, maybe it's also a matter of critical thinking. Do you need to wash it every day? I mean, that's an assumption we have, and we need to challenge those assumptions, I think. I mean, a wrapper for lunch, you can easily use it for 5 or 6 days on end and not wash it. But it's maybe not something that we believe.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to say too. So actually, when we are on our tours, usually, people either bring their lunch or they have the possibility to get it in boxes. But actually, depending on what you're eating, of course, if you have rice or a pasta with tomato sauce, of course, you have to wash it. But it also depends maybe on the food you choose, like...
more dry food, more kind of sandwich style or something where you don't have that liquid content potentially. Yeah. But it is a big thing. It became a really ongoing conversation during the project that we were doing, and we found some answers that work in some places, but not an answer that works for everybody, which is highly frustrating when you really want an answer to the question. I saw a hand.
Yes, well, I received the mic, but I wanted to say the same things the panel just said. It's sometimes you have to change your habits radically in order to solve different kind of problems.
I agree, and I was inspired, especially with you, Niels. It was really, really interesting. Got me some really new ideas. All of you, however, operate in Europe. I operate in Africa, and we do have some other challenges. We do all talk about change and personal change, and yes, we can, but we have the luxury. Until now, I believe sustainability is still a luxury product. If you look at where there was some sensibilization going on about water, about drinking clean water. For years in Africa, people talked about clean water. And finally, they get used, okay, I buy bottled water, it's safe, I won't die from it. And now we have to change that again. But yet, in the meanwhile, there are no alternatives to a lot of people. So you can talk about personal change, and yes, it might work for the tourist, but on a bigger scale in those countries, it doesn't work. Are there any developments in that aspect? Mm-hmm. It's general to everyone.
I didn't understand the question, I'm sorry. What, any developments?
I think I should ask you, because
It's
I think
more-
everyone here is operating mainly in Europe.
In Europe,
And maybe you have ideas or
So around
feel
the
about it.
supply of water, so for example, if you're operating in Africa, I've done some work in Laos and Southeast Asia, where there's a lot of mistrust about, mistrust about bottled water also as well, because some of the bottled water companies may fill that water up in a stream, and there's been instances where people have opened the bottle and there are leaves and things floating on the top, so people prefer to take the smaller bottles of water from a hygiene perspective. But on the contrary, where in some parts of Africa, for example, where it could cause a very significant health issue to drink water that is not from a bottle, then we're giving one message to tourists about don't use plastic bottles, but that is a very difficult message to drive across to people who would live in a destination where access to water or access to safe water is really very difficult to achieve. So when we try to mix that, the sustainable, or the luxury of sustainability, if you like, with tourists in destinations where that is just very difficult for people to comprehend or achieve in their own lives, how do we match that? How can we work with the cultures and the people in the destinations providing that product to be able to do that in a way that it helps us to reduce plastic? And I do think it is a really difficult one.
Thank you. So even in Africa, I do believe that you have the larger containers, right, for water. So even if you do a day trip, you could say like use your reusable water bottle, and then when you come back, you can use the container. It's not eliminating plastic, but at least you're not using the small bottles. And then you have like live straws and stuff like that. That's kind of like a whole new level that people have to get adjusted to. But I do think there are options. Is it the most important one in Africa? I don't think so. But for tourists, like at least with the reusable water bottle, you're eliminating the smaller ones.
Hi.
Yeah, I just want to reply. Yeah, we do that. Obviously, it's not a problem to the tourist. We can organize it, but to the guides, because they have to implement it as well, and they have to understand it by heart. And as well, generally, the vast majority of all the plastic waste comes from the locals. So we have to, it would be great if we could make an impact there. So that was where the question was about.
Maybe something to add. There are more good filters that you can use in bottles in order to also have clean water in Africa. But you have to be creative, I agree, especially to change the mindsets of your local guides.
Thank you. Just one question. We are talking plastic. And one of the things that has been said is regarding the bottles that we should all use refill bottles, okay? And looking around, and most of the refill bottles I see are plastic. There might be different kinds of plastic, but they're still plastic. And my question is that if this is acceptable, because we all know that, okay, glass should be the number one option, but obviously it's not a practical option for tours, and sometimes in some circumstances it's even not allowed, but still seems to be the best option, because aluminium is surely not a good option because of the way it is extracted and the treatment. So, and my question is, why should we keep on using plastic refill bottles? Does anyone has an answer for that?
I think from our perspective at Travel Without Plastic, and you may agree or disagree, we are really focused on the unnecessary single use. So we're not anti-plastic. So plastic itself is a great material, it's lightweight, it's easy, it's convenient, but it can be used for the wrong applications. So if there is a reusable bottle that can be reused and reused and reused forever and ever, and eventually go into the recycling system if necessary, then for us, we see that in tourism, where people are constantly on the go, as a solution.
But the thing is not we know that a lot of the refill plastic bottles are not recyclable.
That would depend on exactly.
The type of plastic, it's non-recyclable.
It depends on the material it's made from and the infrastructure in the destination.
But there will be a lifetime for it. And
yeah,
in my opinion,
everything has an impact, and that's one of the things that when you're in whatever situation you're in, whatever organisation you work for, your answers and your solutions, if you operate globally, could be very different in one destination as if you're in Africa, for example, for what they would be in Europe. So if you switch to aluminium, like you say, there's a really heavy footprint of that at the point of making aluminium, but that bottle can go back into the recycling system. It shouldn't have to, because actually that should survive way past. You could hand that down generations and generations like you would with a really expensive watch. The key there is not necessarily as a tour operator or as a person saying, I want the next new designed aluminium bottle, I want another one, and you end up with 10 of them under the kitchen sink that never see the light of day. So I think it's really thinking about how we consume those items, but you've got to take decisions that make sense in the situation that you're in and the destination that you're in and the infrastructure that's available to you, which is why I think you've got to just weigh up all those impacts, and there will constantly be a trade-off of some sort, because you can't achieve plastic reduction and achieve something else at the same time necessarily. There's always a trade-off, and those decisions need to be made internally.
Yeah. Regarding aluminium, it's not only the process; it's
in the extraction and
and that's not the only problem, because it's still to be proved that it's totally free of being harmful to the.
No, exactly. Nothing is. I don't think. No.
No. Still, it's a much better solution as far as the current what science says for the moment.
Previously, I worked in health and safety. And that was black and white. And you move into sustainability and it's really 50 shades of green, I think. And it's very complicated and there is no easy answer to any of those questions. I think it's very much an individual choice.
Yeah, just to add something quickly, Paula, I think you made a really good point. But I think that, by the way, I'm Çağlar from Turkey, Istanbul. But I think it also started a huge concern amongst the industry as well. In my last trip to UK, I actually get introduced to 2 different companies which are making bottles out of sugarcane. So one of them is called Water to Go. I think we also use them as our producer as well as much as possible. We have other problems in our country where like finding drinking water is pretty tough. You just need to purchase them from the supermarkets and stuff. So that's why, I mean, I think the industry is aware of this issue as well and trying to find some solutions. I actually have a very quick question for you guys as well. If you are not operating on the day trips, we also have this responsibility about the accommodation facilities as well. And we all know that they also have some extra income from selling, you know, things from the minibar or like, you know, in the bars and everything. And as much as we push them, sometimes they find alternative solutions to the plastic usage by offering only glass bottles. But we actually kind of push them to operate that part by making some refilling stations in their lobby or wherever they can just put to be introduced to our clients. How do you handle the accommodation side? Because that sometimes could be pretty challenging to talk about the financial sides of the effect to the accommodation facilities.
I think that will need to be the last question if somebody is able to take that, if any of you have direct relationships with any of the accommodations where your customers are staying.
So I would say that in general in Croatia, we've seen an increase in awareness and attitude towards sustainable operations across accommodation suppliers. The main hotel chains that operate on the Adriatic coast all have CSR reports and sustainability policies and take very active steps to improve their operations. But the reality of the situation is that the customer does decide at the end of the day which accommodation they will choose. You have to provide them with more than one option in lots of instances, but actually one step that we've taken in terms of long-term planning and investment is to develop software for our supplier management database that identifies the most sustainable accommodation suppliers, so that when any of my colleagues in the sales team are putting together a land tour program or a MICE package for somebody, they can filter through that system when that goes live, and it will give them the best accommodation providers in that field in regards to sustainability. And therefore you hope that by rewarding those that operate in that way, it brings the standard up for everybody else.
By the way, supply chain panel, there will be hopefully really nice ideas and best practices popping up. Yeah.
I can talk about our small reality. Like in Sardinia, we have lots of agriturismo, which is an accommodation which is a rural accommodation. And then, of course, when we get requests, some people want to stay in a hotel near the beach and pool, etc. So I think it's really the agent who has to do a good job to say, okay, all the hotels near the coast are big resorts where lots of water is used. Think about the pool, so many liters of water. Why don't you choose an accommodation which is family run, has good food, you are in the middle of nowhere, silence, peace, nature, and you can even go outside at night and see the stars. So it's really the agent himself who can make a change, and maybe you even have a pool. But you're just maybe 5 to 10 kilometers away from the coast. So really, I guess it's a thing that agents can make a big change if they want customers to choose more sustainable accommodation.
And through the SUSTOUR project with the plastic management, there's been a lot of tools made for tour operators that they can share with accommodation suppliers to help them to start on that journey or accelerate any progress that they might have made. I think we need to wrap up, don't we, Laura?
So much. It was such an inspiring and practical panel. Thank you to all the panelists. Thank you to you, Joe. Do go on a little lunch break now, lunch adventure, you could almost say. We're going for a picnic lunch. Our lovely hostesses will guide us there to the park nearby. We'll go in 2 groups, so give you a chance to go to the bathroom, or for the ones that are ready, you can already go outside or to the entrance door, and the first group will leave, and the second group will hang around until everybody's ready to leave. And you can leave your things here. The room will be watched, I hear, and we will continue. We'll have lunch until 2:15 and continue the next panel at 2:30, so having enough time to settle back here. All right? We surely...